very near Beverly Hills, and she was staying in a hotel, and she said that one of the ascended masters literally woke her up in the middle of the night, and she turned around in her bed and she saw this person stood there in the middle of the bedroom. And we can talk more about that later, but after giving this message to Muriel, he walked through the solid locked door of the hotel room and disappeared in the corridor.
Welcome back to Strange Normal. My name is Brad Burnham. We talk about the stranger things that happen in your normal life to give you a biblical understanding of what's going on. And there's going to be a lot going on. So hit that subscribe button, hit that little bell icon so you're notified when things like this happen. A lot of things we talk about on this channel come from our Discord server. Our Discord server is a little chat room that gives not only a log of what's happening, but a whole different group of different categories that we archive all of our content in, so you can check it out and you can be informed quicker and faster, and you can help us out, because the way you get involved in this Discord and you obtain this information is you also can connect to it through our Patreon account. You go to patreon.com/strangenormal and you can help us spread the word about what's going on, because all the proceeds that come in through Patreon go to advertising, talking about this coming event. The thing that this whole channel is built on is this strange anomalies that it's going to become the new part of the world someday. If you don't know what we're talking about, stick around. It's going to be amazing. Tonight, we got a special guest, though. His name is Will Barron, and he's going to be talking to us about the New Age, because I'm going to be out at TV stations doing 3 different shows for a TV station called 3ABN. Will Barron is a fascinating guy. He's completely understands what's going on as far as the UAP interesting stuff that's happening, and he's willing to show us exactly how this is moving in line with the New Age philosophy. So without further ado, let's get right into it. It's really interesting to me as I research this strange deception that's going to come on the world in the near future, that the connection to the New Age movement is almost identical. Are you aware of this strange connection between these UAPs, as the government is now calling them, and people that are trying to contact these things is using the exact same methods as the New Age movement is? Have you heard of this?
I have, but Brad, let me first off tell you that you're using now obsolete vocabulary. For example, New Age movement is no longer in style. The satanic forces, and I believe there are satanic forces. I believe evil angels of Satan are real. I was a servant of them, believing that these angels were God's angels. I never suspected that my personal ascended masters were anything other than God's representatives. And over the last 15 years or so, gradually, Satan himself has realized that there are Christians out there like myself and others that are warning about New Age. And so Satan, as a strategy, has moved away from using the word New Age. So most New Agers now just call themselves, oh, we are spiritual. We're involved in spirituality.
Wow.
And so it becomes very amorphous. And this whole, what we as Christians would call the New Age movement, now is just a spirituality movement. It's more difficult to pin down where people are coming from. What are their beliefs? What are the theological beliefs? And so rather than being a more focused organization that it was initially, New Age itself, this New Age movement came out of Theosophy, or the Theosophical Society, that was founded by a Russian mystic called Madame Helen Petrovna Blavatsky. It was actually founded in 1875 in New York City. And there were offshoot movements. For example, Alice Bailey, who was the teacher I followed, was originally a theosophist, and she became a channeler of these so-called ascended masters that are claimed to be God's 49 main representatives on planet Earth. The Theosophical Society taught that Jesus was one of the leaders of these ascended masters. And so from the Theosophical Society, there were offshoots with different teachings, and basically New Age has that was what I would call classical New Age, is the Theosophical Society and its Alice Bailey offshoot and some other similar offshoots. That I call classical New Age. But beyond that, yeah, you've got many different groups. You've got, for example, Wicca. Witchcraft is very much part of New Age, but it would be not classic New Age. And then the whole idea of UFOs and communicating with extraplanetary entities and spirits is not mainstream or classical New Age. It's more on the fringes, but a lot of their teachings, a lot of their philosophies and practices are actually very similar. And I started out in New Age by reading this book by Robert Monroe, Journeys Out of the Body. And I was fascinated by the idea that you could practice certain techniques to leave your body behind and travel. Now, in my astral travel, I only traveled to another place on planet Earth. It was about maybe 200 miles away, but others claim to have traveled to other planets and other stars using those same techniques. So again, you have a connection between occult practice or mystical practice and the UFO phenomena.
Is this called OBE? Is that what you call it? The out-of-body experience? Is that
yes,
the same as astral travel?
Yes, correct. Yes. Astral travel would be more of an occultic expression for it.
So what's the difference between that and remote viewing?
Well, remote viewing or similar practices, I believe they are actually the same. Okay. But it's how you understand what is happening is the difference. But I personally believe it's all demonic. When I was practicing astral projection or astral travel, it appears that you, in your soul consciousness, travel from where you're located in real time and real space. It feels like you are traveling through the darkness of space. It happened at night for me, and you go to another location, which for me was a small New Age commune in Northern Ireland that was called Atlantis, and I traveled there astrally. I literally appeared inside the rooms of this commune. It used to be a small guest house. Some New Agers took this over, and I was part of that community at one time as part of my New Age adventures, if you will. And it appeared that I was there. You're possessed with all sensory faculties. I could smell the distinct peat fires that they have in Northern Ireland. They burn this substance. It's like a premature coal. It's called peat, and it has a certain smell to it. And I could smell that. I could smell the incense that was sometimes burned in that New Age commune. And I could have all sensory faculties. I could see inside there exactly the way it was. I could have that sense of taste and smell and hear what was going on. They had an open hearth fire there in the founder and the director's bedroom, which was also her office. She had an open hearth fire there burning this peat, and I could hear this fire burning. You have all sensory perception. Everything appears that you're there, but you really are not.
Yeah. That's what I wanted to ask you. So because a lot of people say, we've had these strange abduction experiences, which people are very adamant are very realistic, but I think it's in the mind. I think it's like a vision. And so what I asked you was, if this is similar to astral projection, are you in control, or are you being fed this information? You understand what I'm saying?
Yes. Well, you're in control in the sense that I deliberately learned from this book the techniques of being able to produce this experience. So I'm in control in the sense that I wanted to have that experience. It was intentional and deliberate. But since I was rescued from the terrible deception of New Age spirituality, which was many years ago, and I studied these issues and thought about them, I'm now convinced that there is a different explanation than you in your soul or astral body literally traveling to another location. For example, in astral projection, astral travel, you still have about 5 to 10% of consciousness of being where you physically really are. For me, it was in a house that I was renting. I was in the bedroom of that house, in my bedroom at that time. I had like 5% to 10% of my consciousness was an awareness that my flesh and blood body and my mind was still there. I had that awareness. Now, if you were truly astral traveling, you could still have that awareness. You could still say, well, in my soul body, in my spirit body, that's how I traveled. But I had an awareness that my real flesh and blood body was obviously still in that house or in that bedroom. You could still explain it that way. But this is what I believe really happens. I believe that an angel of Satan is physically present in that commune. It was called Atlantis in Northern Ireland. Actually, it was in the Republic. It was in Southern Ireland, the Republic of Ireland in the county of Donegal, but it's in the northern part of Ireland, but not politically in Northern Ireland itself, the political entity. I believe a satanic angel is present in that house, and it is acting as a video camera.
Yeah.
And it is recording everything that is happening in that room and in the other rooms that I pass through walls. Now, angels can pass through walls. I mean, Jesus, after his resurrection from the dead, he was able to pass through walls. He didn't have like a totally dense flesh and blood body at that time. He resurrected with it, but he underwent, I believe, a certain transformation. So he had become, if you will, having the same body as what an angel has. And an angel can make their body look like it's real and feel like it's real. But a truly dense flesh and blood body cannot pass through walls. I mean, it just cannot. I don't believe it can anyway. Now, maybe with Jesus there was another explanation. I don't know, but I personally think he did undergo some translation or transformation in which he was existing more as an angel in terms of his body. Now, this is when he appeared to his disciples in the upper room, for example, just passed through the wall and then disappeared. Now, back to this New Age commune in Ireland, a satanic angel there is present and is like acting as a video camera, but it's more sophisticated. This video camera also can record the sense of smell, the odors in the room, and a sense of taste and a sense of hearing. Obviously, it has the equivalent of a microphone. Now, in our technology, like through this webcast, we only have the sense of vision and hearing, audio, but add that the sense of taste and smell. That angel then communicates through spiritual realms, obviously through mystical realms, through the spirit planes or whatever. These are really existing. I mean, there is a spirit realm. The Apostle Paul talks about different levels of heaven. There is a spirit realm, and they transmit this through spirituality. I believe in my own bedroom where I was having this experience, there was another satanic angel there that was receiving this communication and probably relaying it and passing it into my mind. So what was really happening? I was really having a vision in real time that was a live vision, transmitting sensory information from another location. Now, what was very interesting for me was that when I I originally appeared in the lobby of this small guest house or small hotel that had become this commune. When I arrived, I was in the lobby area, and I moved, passing through the wall, into the bedroom of the founder and director of that institution, that center, you could call it, or commune. And I noticed that her bed was in a different position than it had been when I had last visited that commune, which was probably about 6 months before. It had been moved.
Huh.
Now, I noticed that straight away. It was not in the same place. Now, a couple of months later, after having this so-called out-of-body journey out of the body, or astral travel, astral projection, after a couple of months later, I went on a vacation visit to that commune. I went there periodically for vacation visits, and I noticed the bed had been moved, and it was where I had seen it in this astral travel projection. And I asked the lady there, her name was Jenny James. She's a public figure. She has written books about her different spirituality experiences. I asked her, "Oh, you've moved your bed?" She says, "Yeah, I moved it, a few months ago."
Huh.
So this was something happens in real time. It was in real location, but I don't believe now that as humans we have a spirit body or a soul body that can actually travel to other places. And of course, for those people that are involved in UFOs and the cults that are involved in that, like there was that one cult in San Diego, I forget the name, something Heaven's Gate cult, I think they were called. When they claim, oh, we actually travel to another planet, we travel to Venus or Neptune or to another solar system somewhere, I believe they're just being given visions by satanic angels, by what we call demons, demonic powers. It's really a form of vision, but I don't believe it's coming from God. It is coming from satanic angels that are perpetrating deception. They're basically seducing people to be involved in mysticism, involved in the occult, and involved in different explanations for phenomena. But missing from all these explanations is this reality that the Bible teaches, that there is Satan out there, and he has hordes of angels. We don't know how many there are. There are thousands of evil angels, and they're all masquerading as ascended masters. They're masquerading as lighted beings, as spirit guides, and they give their victims these visionary experiences. They talk to them in clairvoyance, besides clairvision, and people are totally deceived by this. They're sucked into it, and it is not anything of God at all. It is inherently evil, and people that are on that path become totally deceived, and they're not going to experience the true joy and the true blessings of God. Now, evil angels can give you highs as well. In the New Age movement, I had many high experiences. They can feed you with energy that makes you actually feel joy for a while anyway, and they can give you energy that makes you feel totally depressed in order to coerce you to carry out their will and to serve them and do what they need you to do, basically.
And I've often wondered about that exact thing. You kind of go into that. I've heard parts of your testimony. I want to get into that in a moment, but that's really interesting. You should say that they can make you feel a certain way, make you feel. I've recently produced some videos that talk about how someone knew that they were seeing Jesus by a feeling. Now, I don't believe that you can know something by a feeling, but they said they felt so loved. It was a flood of love that came into them. That's not the way the Bible says that we know that the truth, but demons can make you feel love. They can make you feel pain. I've heard that you had back pain in your experience.
The back pain actually wasn't from demons. It was more emotional pain.
They relieved it, though,
terrible. Right? They can relieve pain, absolutely, for a period. Yes, they're able to work energies that appears to be healings, but it doesn't last. That's the problem. It doesn't last.
Wow.
But they can absolutely manipulate energies. They're powerful. I mean, an angel of God slew 185,000 of the Assyrians at the time of the prophets of God, that is recorded in the Old Testament. But angels have tremendous powers. Now, I don't believe that Satan's angels have the same power as God's angels, but they do have power. And the book of Revelation in the Bible indicates that as we enter these last days, very soon, for the nearness, soon to the nearness of the coming of Jesus, it indicates that demonic powers will work some miracles. They will, God will allow them to have powers that they didn't have before. For example, you probably remember that Elijah had a big showdown with the prophets of the pagan deities, and on Mount Carmel. And there was a test. They had an altar built with animal sacrifice on this altar. They had the wood there, and the test to determine who was the true God. Was it the God of the prophets of Jezebel and King Ahab? Were those true prophets that were following pagan deities, whether Baal or Asherah, the female deity? The test was who would be able to bring fire down from heaven to earth to ignite the wood and the sacrifice on this altar. And of course, the prophets of Baal and Asherah, they were doing all their occult rites, all their mystical paraphernalias, all their incantations, but they were not able to bring fire down from heaven. So after they'd spent hours doing their things, doing their magical rituals and their incantations, they were not able to do this. All their mantras didn't work.
Yeah.
And then it was Elijah's turn, and he simply prays. And before he did that, he even asked that pails of water be thrown upon the wood to make it more difficult. And then Elijah prays, and then fire comes down from heaven and ignites not only the wood and the dead animal sacrifice, but ignites the very altar itself and burns everything up. But in the book of Revelation, there are going to be some spiritual powers that exist that are described in Revelation chapter 13. There's two beasts. There's the first beast that comes out of the sea, a leopard-like beast, and it is followed by another colleague representing some similar religious organization or power, but different. This second beast described as a lamb-like beast that speaks with the mouth of the dragon. And this lamb-like beast that speaks, lamb-like means it's Jesus-like. Jesus is the lamb slain from the foundations of the earth. But this lamb-like beast speaks with a dragon, even though he looks lamb-like, looks like Jesus, and will speak like Jesus initially. But in reality, he's speaking from the dragon. The dragon is a symbol for Satan himself. He is the devil, Satan, Lucifer, as he's called in the King James Version of the Bible. And it says that this second beast will have the power to bring fire down from heaven to earth in full view of men, which indicates some of the powers that God's prophets of old, like Moses, work miracles. God used Moses to work miracles in order to deliver the Israelites from their bondage in Egypt. But the sorcerers and the magicians of Pharaoh, they had power. They could replicate the first 4 of those miracles that were wrought by Moses and Aaron. But after that, they could not work miracles. God restricted the power. But the book of Revelation there in chapter 13 indicates that in the last days, as we enter the final crisis and before the coming of the final Antichrist, that the Antichrist powers will work with miraculous powers to deceive even the elect, if that was possible. And they will have the power to bring fire down from heaven to earth in full view of men. Now, I believe that language doesn't necessarily mean they will bring real fire. I believe God is telling us that they will have the power that the prophets of Baal and Asherah could not have in Elijah's day. Only God had that, but they will have powers that God had. I assume they will be limited in some manner. I don't know. Maybe they won't. Maybe they will virtually work with the same power that God's prophets had. Maybe they will be able to truly heal people instead of a pseudo healing that just lasts a certain amount of time. I don't know.
Isn't that interesting?
We'll have to see what happens, but it shows the demonic powers absolutely have power, and this is why they're so deceiving, because they can make you feel high. They can give you energy that feels very pleasant, very holy, very sacred, but it is a terrible deception. And we have to remember, Jesus himself, he spoke to the religious leaders of Judaism in his own day, these scribes and these Pharisees and the Sadducees, the teachers of the law, which would be the equivalent of the theologians. And he said, your Father is not the Father who is in heaven, the Ancient of Days, the Lord God Almighty. Your father is the devil. And these were the leaders of the religion of Judaism in his day. So there is a warning for all of us. Don't think that some religious leader is necessarily going to be aligned to God. They could be aligned to Satan, and they're speaking with the mouth of the Lamb, but really deep down, they're speaking with the voice of the dragon. We have to be very discerning, very careful.
I find this whole thing fascinating, especially what you're saying. I from my understanding, you have quite the experience in this already, and so I want to dive into your experience in this and how you are able to know all this information about this stuff from your personal experience. Can you tell us how that got started?
Well, today, most people are probably going to get involved in the occult or New Age spirituality, which, as I mentioned, is no longer called New Age spirituality, just spirituality. But I will use the word New Age because that's what it is. People get involved in it initially through different means. For me personally, it started out through psychology. As a teenager, I had a lot of stress problems. I had phobias, and I realized these were interfering with my career prospects. So I was looking for solutions to the physical anxiety, to my nervousness, to my fears and phobias. And so I went to the local city library, Carnegie Library, and was borrowing books on self-help psychology. I actually came across a book on stress disease. It was actually written by a New Ager. I didn't know it. I didn't even know what New Age was at the time. I had no knowledge of this whole area of deceptive spirituality that is mixed together with psychology. And as I read this book, towards the end of this book, there were promotions of mystical healing techniques, or what are called alternative healing techniques, and I was fascinated by them. And so I joined an organization that was based in London. I was living in the United Kingdom at the time where I was born and brought up. I joined an organization called Health for the New Age, which primarily focused on researching alternative healing techniques, including the psychic surgery that was at that time supposedly performed in the Philippines, but it has subsequently been discovered by the internet, ITN, the Independent Television Network of the UK. They sent film crews out there and discovered it was actually fraud, what they were doing. It was just a money-making thing. But this organization was promoting alternative healing. So I gradually got deeper and deeper. And this organization being called Health for the New Age. I was intrigued by what is New Age and started studying New Age psychology and New Age mysticism. Was interested then in out-of-body travel, which was part of that, and that's when I started to be interested in having astral projection, astral travel, because it was believed you could learn things by going onto the astral plane. and discovering things in that plane that was supposedly useful knowledge for you. So for me, the portal or the door of entry into New Age spirituality was psychology, self-help psychology. But today, I would think probably most people enter New Age through the practice of yoga, through physical yoga called hatha yoga. They have health problems and they again probably have stress. We're in a competitive age, and that produces stresses, and people turn to the practice of yoga to reduce stress, to enable them to perform better in their careers, in their jobs. And through yoga, hatha yoga, it's so easy to then migrate into the other forms of yoga. Hatha yoga is just physical yoga, but it's part of a spiritual discipline or practice that comes from Hinduism that just has the word yoga. Yoga simply means union. It means to have a union or a unity between you and the gods of Hinduism. So this hatha physical yoga, its purpose is to join you to be in harmony with the pagan deities of Hinduism, the main deities of yoke. Yeah, the English word yoke is totally derived from the Sanskrit language of Hinduism, the word yoga and yoke. They're together. And Jesus, of course, says that we should be yoked to him. The true yoga is to be yoked to Jesus, to be connected with him through the Holy Scriptures and through the worship of Christian worship and through prayer, Christian prayer. Now, when most yoga classes end with meditation, and this meditation is now by educators and psychologists is called mindfulness or mindfulness meditation, but it truly is not something from psychology. This all comes from the pagan religious practice of Hinduism. The meditation of Hinduism truly should be called transcendental meditation. Transcendental means that you are transcending normal consciousness. And instead of your normal waking consciousness, you are entering an altered state of consciousness. And from that altered state of consciousness, you're able to connect with or be yoked to or have a union with spiritual power that lies behind the Hindu religion. And I personally believe it is satanic. And so people that start out practicing hatha or physical yoga generally migrate to practicing transcendental meditation, and that is a spiritual practice. Really, in Hinduism, hatha yoga is a spiritual practice, even though it's physical. I mean, in Christianity, there are things that we do that are physical, like prayer. We can get on our knees, that's a physical act. We can close our eyes, that's a physical act. We speak to God in prayer, that's a physical act. And hatha yoga is a physical component of a spiritual or religious practice known as yoga. This yoga to be yoked or connected or in union with the pagan gods of Hinduism. The three main deities are Shiva, Vishnu, and Brahma. And then you have other pagan deities, Kali, Durga, and Shakti. These are other pagan deities that you can connect to. Now, for others, you could enter New Age through the practice of martial arts. Martial arts comes more from the Chinese mystical teachings. They're very parallel to the teachings of Hinduism. They're not quite the same. They use different vocabulary, different terms. For example, mystical power in Hinduism is called prana, but in the Eastern practice of China, it is called qi or kai. But it's just a different word for the same kind of mystical spiritual energy. Now, is this mystical energy coming from God, or is this mystical energy coming from Satan? This is the major issue that we need to ask. The problem is that in Hindu religions, there doesn't exist a being of evil, a leader of all evil called Satan. And certainly in Western classical New Age, there is no teaching that Satan or evil exists. I was a follower of the teachings of Alice Bailey. This is one of the Alice Bailey books. It's called Esoteric Psychology, Volume 2. And in these books, it clearly teaches that Satan does not exist. There is no great prince of evil in the world. And this is common New Age teaching. I mean, very few New Agers are going to ever teach that there is Satan that can deceive you, can tempt you, that he has a whole horde of angels, evil angels, that can manipulate your emotions, manipulate your thinking. They can put ideas and thoughts, powerful thoughts called thought forms, into your mind. No, the New Age teaches that Satan does not exist. Therefore, for a New Ager, or somebody entering New Age, whatever mystical experience you have, whether it's astral travel and communicating with UFOs, or communicating with extraterrestrial terrestrial intelligences, you are never going to suspect that comes from Satan if you don't believe Satan exists. If you have a philosophy that there is no Satan, whatever communication you're going to have with extraterrestrials, you're going to assume it's benevolent, that it's going to help you, that it is true intelligence, that you're going to learn some information that you didn't know before that's going to be useful to your life. You're going to make that assumption, and that is a very dangerous assumption. That is why New Age spirituality, why extraterrestrial communication, why astral projection, astral travel is so dangerous, because most people that practice it are not aware that there is a real Satan out there, and real satanic spirits, evil angels that we call demons, and they can deceive you. They will feed you a lot of truth. This is why New Age is so dangerous. It teaches a lot of truth. And this all goes back to the book of Genesis, Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, Genesis chapter 3, where Eve is deceived by a serpent, and Satan was speaking through a serpent. It was a sort of a ventriloquist type of scenario that Satan had the power to do, and Eve was deceived. But the serpent starts out speaking truth. Yeah. Did God not say that you must not eat from this tree of the knowledge of good and evil? Always Satan starts out with truth and then puts a spin on truth, like, did God not say, as a little hint there that, well, there may be some doubt in what God said. And then you have eventually a blatant lie that if you eat this fruit, you will not die.
Did you have experience wisdom with these angels as well? I mean, did you have experience with these demonic forces that caused you to have? I don't want to go back. I mean, I don't want to contract from what you're saying, because I think it's 100% true. But I don't want to get off from that point, because I thought it was very fascinating that you said that these things can make you feel a certain way and all this stuff. And did that happen to you as well?
Oh yes, I actually had an incredible vision where one of these evil angels of Satan appeared to me in visual form and spoke to me. On my book, which I wrote several years ago, which is available on Amazon. It's a book called Deceived by the New Age. Here on the front cover is a picture of what one of Satan's angels looks like. This is how they really look. And I was actually living in Hollywood at the time, and I was working as an engineer, and I was attending classes at a New Age center that was located in the affluent Pacific Palisades area of Los Angeles. It's not far from Malibu or Santa Monica. And I originally went to that center to be a client for a psychic fair. And I had some problems in my job, and I was feeling depressed, and I felt that I wanted to have some counsel. And I'd been involved in psychology counseling, but I felt I needed something more powerful. This was a very special circumstance. I felt that I needed direction in my life. I felt my life was come to a dead end, and I didn't know where to go, even though I'd had these out-of-body experiences, so-called astral travel, and I'd been involved in this New Age commune, and I'd studied shamanism, but I felt like nothing seemed to be coming together. I was at a dead end in my life. So I decided to have a psychic counseling session, and through some of the alternative magazines published in Los Angeles, which are basically New Age magazines, I saw an advertisement for a psychic fair. And so I went this particular Sunday afternoon to this location in the Pacific Palisades, and it turned out to be a New Age center called the Lighted Way. And at that time, even though I was involved in mystical experiences like astral travel, I was very leery or afraid of getting involved in anything religious. I didn't want to be involved in any cult religions. Mm-hmm. And so when I entered the room, there was a host there, a lady. She was probably in her late 50s and looked a very professional looking lady. And I asked her, I said, are you some kind of religion? And she said, no, we are spiritual. And that sort of put me at ease. And I said, well, I'm really not here for a $20 10-minute psychic reading. I really would like to have an in-depth counseling session with a professional psychic. And she said, oh, my name is Muriel. I'm the founder and director of this spiritual center. It is called the Lighted Way. And I'll be happy to arrange for an in-depth personal counseling session with you one evening if you'd like to make an appointment. And I said yes. So I made the appointment and then I left. I just didn't want to have a $20 reading with some psychic that who knows whether they're genuine or not. And that same week I had about a 1.5 hour counseling session with this psychic, and she had incredible psychic power. She described friends in detail. She described my situation without knowing anything about me at all.
Wow.
It was incredible. And during that 1.5 hour psychic interview, that psychic counseling, balls of liquid perspiration were rolling down my face. And I had to take a Kleenex tissue and kept wiping my face and chin and cheeks because of this balls of liquid perspiration. And yet I didn't feel hot at all. The air conditioning in that room was working perfectly. I was aware there's some incredible power at work here. And I was fascinated and intrigued by the power that was at work. And at the end of the session, Muriel Isis was her name. She invited me to attend evening classes and weekend workshops at her center, and she gave me a flyer, a program of the different classes she had, and she said, come down to these classes, and they're all by donation only. You're just free to give a donation, and we'll be happy to see you. And so I was very intrigued, and I started attending classes at this New Age center. And after about a year of attending these classes, we were studying typical New Age things like astrology, numerology, psychic development. We were studying New Age discipleship classes. That was the main class. We were studying the Alice Bailey teachings. This is one of the Alice Bailey books, published by Lucis Press. Wow. And it's interesting, the first 2 years of Lucis Press was Alice Bailey had a spirit guide called Joel Kuhl, supposedly one of these ascended masters that are God's representatives on planet Earth. Now, I believe they're representatives of Satan. They're Satan's angels, but it's interesting. The first 2 years, Alice Bailey was told by her spirit guide, Joel Kuhl, to name the publishing house Lucifer Publishing Company. That was the name. This was going back to about the early 1920s when these books were published. These are all channel teachings. There was maybe about a dozen or more of these books that were channeled by Alice Bailey, a theosophist, channeled from this spirit guide, Joel Kuhl. And they were published for the first 2 years by Lucifer Publishing Company. And no one knows this because after 2 years, the name was changed, but no one would buy these books published by Lucifer Publishing Company. And so Alice Bailey's spirit guide told her the planet Earth is not ready to know that Lucifer is actually not Satan. He's a great lighted being. And yes, he had a fall, but he learned from his mistakes and he's now a great being of light. But until the world realizes this truth, we need to change the publishing house to Lucis Press. Well, Lucis is just a Latin name that's a play on the word Lucifer. Lucifer itself means light bearer, which was a Latin name for Lucifer. Now, Lucifer really was not called Lucifer. That's from the Latin language. His real Hebrew name was Halel, Halal, Halel, whatever way you want to pronounce it. It means light bearer or bringer of light. Well, he was a lighted being originally before his fall, but after his fall, God renamed him as Satan and the devil, the great adversary, the great deceiver. But I was studying these books, and it was mandatory as a student of the Lighted Way New Age Center, where I had that psychic reading. It was mandatory that you had to practice meditation every day, at least 20 minutes. And so that this particular morning, this is about 12 months after I was taking these classes, this particular morning, I was in a lot of discomfort. As a child, when I was 12 years old, I had a spinal injury. I fell backwards on some wooden crates and I injured my thoracic number 5 vertebrae, and it was giving me a lot of pain that morning. And I just couldn't sit still in this meditation. I was sitting cross-legged on the floor of my bedroom there, living in this house in Hollywood, in the lotus position, the traditional meditation position, with your legs crossed, sitting on the floor. I couldn't sit quietly. I mean, this pain was killing me.
And how long had you been in this? Had you been studying this so far?
Well, 12 months.
12 months. Okay.
12 months. Yeah. The Alice Bailey teachings. This is in a sense, the core of classical New Age teachings, and it's a development of theosophy teachings started by Madame Blavatsky there in 1875. Alice Bailey was a channeler of these ascended masters in the early 1920s. I think she started about 1918, something like that. And Alice Bailey, incidentally, was originally born and brought up in England, in the city of Manchester, which is not far from my hometown. And I usually tell people I'm from near the city of Manchester. And Alice Bailey emigrated to the United States. She was actually the wife of an Episcopalian priest. And she was working in the canneries in the San Francisco Bay Area, the fish canneries. And one of her colleagues at work was a theosophist. And this theosophist introduced Alice Bailey into the Theosophical Society teachings. And I have a copy here of the main book that Alice Bailey, an Anglican priest's wife, was studying this book by Madame Blavatsky called Secret Doctrine. And this was the first book to teach New Age teachings. And Alice Bailey, in her own autobiography, writes that as she started to study and read Secret Doctrine, Blavatsky's book, she noticed that she was reading her Bible less and less. And Alice Bailey got deceived. She joined the Theosophical Society, and she left her husband, who was this Anglican Episcopalian priest, left him, and she married one of the leaders of the International Theosophical Society headquarters, which at that time was in Hollywood. It subsequently moved to the small town called Ojai, a small city in Southern California near Ventura. It's in Ventura County. Ojai now is one of the major New Age communities in the United States. The number 1 community is Sedona in Arizona, but number 2 is Ojai in Southern California. It's called the Shangri-La of California, full of New Agers and New Age organizations there. But this particular morning now was actually Halloween. So New Age, very closely connected with Halloween. It's part of the Buddhist Wesak festival, or connected with it. And I was sat there, my back was in pain, but there was a voice inside my mind told me to just persist, just continue to meditate. And so I
was this
tried my
voice
best.
audible? I mean, could you hear it in your ears, or was it just in your head? Just like how for those of us who haven't experienced this,
Very
how
good
was it?
question. Very good question. Yeah. The way the spirits speak to you, whether you're channeling your deceased father or deceased mother or grandmother or deceased aunt or whatever, if you're practicing mediumship, the classical form of spiritualism in a seance, or whether you're communicating with extraterrestrials, or whether you're communicating with so-called ascended masters, these lighted beings, usually predominantly like 95% of communication is not through the physical ears, but it's in a voice inside the mind. These spirit beings communicate through the voice of conscience. Now, there are times where they could communicate audibly, but it is very rare, but it does happen. And so for me, that particular morning, this is the morning of Halloween in 1981, the voice was in my mind, but it was very clear, very distinct. And it spoke to me and it said, persist, just persist. And the meditation I was practicing was it was called Kundalini meditation. It's a version of transcendental meditation involving Kundalini power. Now, Kundalini, as part of Hinduism, and it is described as the serpent power, not Satan power, serpent power, because they don't believe in the existence of Satan in the New Age, but they do have a concept when you're deeply involved in this occult of serpent power. Within the practice of Hindu yoga, spiritual practice, when you get deeper into this practice of transcendental meditation, you start to learn the concept of Kundalini energy and Kundalini power. So what we were practicing in the Lighted Way Spiritual Center was Kundalini yoga and Kundalini meditation. There was a British civil servant, Sir John Waldroff, who wrote books on this Kundalini power. And he was a New Ager. He was part of the British civil service when India was a imperialistic possession of the United Kingdom. And he researched transcendental meditation and Kundalini yoga, and he describes it as serpent power. It's on his main book that he published. I think his book was published not under his real name. He adopted a pen name of Avalon, and he totally connects it with serpent power. I mean, this is real. In Hindu graphic art, you will see many snakes, serpents associated with the Hindu deities. Very interesting indeed. All goes back to the Garden of Eden and the serpent power there. So we were open, knew that this was the power of the coiled serpent that supposedly resides at the base of the spine. In this Hindu mysticism, it is said there are several mystical power centers on the human body. You've got this, they're called chakras, and you have the base chakra at the bottom of the spine. And then you have the heart chakra that's in the center on the same level as the heart. And then you have a crown chakra on the top of your head. You've got the third eye center in the front of the forehead, the eye of mystical vision, of third eye vision, and then you have the throat chakra of communicating voices, clairvoyance, where you hear voices in your mind and you then speak out what the voice is telling you in this practice of channeling or mediumship uses this throat chakra. Now, I don't know if these chakras really exist. This is all part of the Hindu mystical teachings. And the goal of Kundalini meditation, a deeper, more powerful form of transcendental meditation, the goal of that is to awaken this serpent power energy, this Kundalini energy, and bring it upwards from the base of the spine. And supposedly this will give you siddhis, or what the Hindus regard to be mystical powers. And you can then more accurately practice channeling the spirits. You can be more aligned to them. You can be in a deeper union with them and have mystical healing powers and other mystical powers. That was the whole goal. Now, this was all for benevolent use. This is called white magic. It is not black magic. Black magic is for harmful purposes, where you
like
use
voodoo.
Yes, where you use, well, I don't even know if technically voodoo itself actually is for harmful purposes, but in Mexico and Central America, you have brujeria, brujos or brujos, if you were reading it as it was printed as an English word, brujo, but in Spanish it would be brujo and brujeria. That is all mystical power used for harmful purposes, for evil purposes. You might, for example, feel attracted to a lady that is married, and you could go to a brujo and ask them to perform incantations and magical rituals, and in order for the spirit powers to separate that lady from her husband and to be attracted to you. I mean, this happens in brujeria. That's the real brujeria. But back to this voice spoke to me to persist. And as I was persisting, all of a sudden, it was as if an electric light bulb switched on inside my brain, inside my head. And it felt very soothing energy, very pleasant energy. And this light was very warm. It was like a warm, soothing energy, and it flooded throughout the whole of my body. It went down my body, and I sat there, and it felt like I was sunbathing, for example, on the beach at Malibu, or somewhere on the East Coast, one of those nice sandy beaches, or in Florida, you're just in the sun and it just feels nice and warm, maybe winter in Florida or winter in California. That's how it felt. And then suddenly this person appeared in front of me. Now, it was a vision because my eyes were closed, but Brad, I can tell you, it was as if he was really there, stood in front of me, maybe perhaps 3 yards in front of me or 3 meters in front of me. And when he appeared, I thought it was Jesus Christ, because he looked just like the way artists have pictured Jesus Christ. And there's a image of him painted by an artist based on my description of what he looked like. And this was me, if you will. I'm sitting on the floor, cross-legged. Now, I did not have a horoscope painted on the floor. That's just for graphics for this book cover of my book. And but this was me, the way I practiced that transcendental meditation. And he appeared to me, and I thought it was Jesus Christ. And he then communicated with me telepathically, using clairaudience powers, and I could hear his voice. But again, it was not my ears that were hearing, it was inside my mind.
So he wasn't moving his mouth, but you could hear what he was saying.
Yeah, I could see his mouth was not moving. Now, his face was radiating this brilliant light, brilliant white golden light, but I could see his lips, and I could see they were not moving, but I could hear his voice as clearly as you hear my voice. I could hear his voice. And he said to me, I am not Jesus Christ. I am the ascended master, Joel Kuhl. Now, Joel Kuhl was the same spirit guide or ascended master that Alice Bailey encountered and communicated the material that appears in all these Alice Bailey books. And I'm not sure if Helen Petrovna Blavatsky ever communicated telepathically with Joel Kuhl. I think her spirit guide might have been Katumi, one of these other ascended masters. And in the Alice Bailey teachings and Theosophy, it is taught that there are 49 of these ascended masters. They are claimed to be humans, but it is claimed Joel Kuhl is over 400 years old. It's claimed that he was at one time the abbot of a Buddhist lamasery in Tibet, and that he still lives in Tibet. And through the practice of transcendental meditation, through the practice of Kundalini yoga, he was able to evolve himself to the point that he has become immortal in his flesh and blood body. And it is taught he's 400 years old and he has mystical powers, and he can, in his astral body or soul body, he can travel and appear in the bedroom of one of his disciples. Now, with me, it was in a vision form. My teacher, Muriel Isis, had a visitation from one of these masters in the flesh. She described that she was in her hotel room there in Brentwood, one of the suburbs of Los Angeles. It's next to Bel Air, very near Beverly Hills. And she was staying in a hotel, and she said that one of the ascended masters literally woke her up in the middle of the night, and she turned around in her bed and she saw this person stood there in the middle of the bedroom. And we can talk more about that later, but after giving this message to Muriel, he walked through the solid locked door of the hotel room and disappeared in the corridor. And Muriel, at that point, I'd been a student of Muriel Isis for about 5 years. I knew she was not someone that would lie. She was a deeply spiritual person. And I don't believe she was lying or exaggerating at all. But this particular morning, for me, it was a vision. He stood there. He told me that he had appeared to let me know that I had been selected to be one of his personal disciples. And should I accept this offer of personal discipleship, he would be my master, and he would then train me for a leadership position in this new age movement.
Don't you love a cliffhanger? Will Barron has an amazing testimony, and next time I'm out of town, we're definitely going to be uploading part 2 of his testimony about the new age movement. If you want to watch it now, though, you can always join the Patreon, patreon.com/strangenormal, and you can watch it right now. I will see you next week, as usual. Take care.